Chicago Bears select Caleb Williams, quarterback, Southern California.
If he ain't going to fucking do it right, and I'm going to get on him about doing it right, you best believe if you don't fucking do it right, I'm going to get on you about doing it right.
Okay, so, wow, that's a lot to unpack here.
What's up, Bears fans? Welcome back. As you can see, we had a little excerpt there from last, I think that was last week's show. But in any case, that was talking about Ben Johnson and getting on Colt Kmet at practice and yelling at him for lining up wrong. And we were basically comparing that to, you know, a younger player saying, hey, if a vet like that can get yelled at for not doing shit, something small like that, then I better have my act together, and I better be on my P's and Q's too. So in any case, guys, that was a nice little intro to the show here. As you can see, Aldo has some awesome new graphics for us here on the screen for you to see. It's really cool. But in any case, guys, just a quick reminder, as always, to please like the video, subscribe to the channel. And as you can see, like Aldo has on the graphics there, you can follow us on extra Twitter. I'm at _Jeff Willis. My partner here, Tim, is at Tim Willis24. And you can follow Aldo himself, our executive producer, at Barroom Network. And there's tons of great content on this channel for you guys to check out. So please do so. I see Carl's in the chat. It's good to see you, Carl. He also has his own podcast, Thigh and Smile. You guys should go check that out whenever he does. And he also makes appearances here on the Barroom and on BCP as well, Bears Country Productions. So you should check all that out. We all make good content. So we do appreciate you guys being here as always, and also the support for the other channels as well. There's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of great Bears content here. So Tim, why don't you get us started here? I know you want to talk about something small with baseball real quick because your boy Pete Rose. So go ahead and mention that real quick, and then we'll get started on the Bears stuff.
So first, I want to apologize about last week, guys. I fully intended on discussing this last week because it happened last week, and I wanted to knock it out real quick. And obviously, I had some stuff going on at home, as you guys heard about. I was Mr. Mom Friday night, so I had to get my little one to bed first. Tried to be the best Michael Keaton version of myself that I could be, but in any case, excellent movie too, actually. I shouldn't say excellent. It's a decent little flick. But anyway, if you guys did not know this last week, Major League Baseball, Rob Manfred, made the decision to eliminate bans on players once they've been deceased. So that made players like Pete Rose and Black Sox outfielder. Gosh, Jeff, now I can't even. Sheilus Joe. Sorry, guys. He made them eligible. It is. It's Kai. Hang on. Let me get him out real quick. Go ahead and talk for a second, Jeff. Let these guys know what's going on.
As you guys can see, Tim's got 4 boys. So my guess is it's probably his 3-year-old came into the room and is trying to figure out what's going on. He probably needs him for something or wants him for something. That kid is something else. So
bullshit. They're that good. They're really good.
That's exactly what it's like with them. They're good kids, but they are a handful. That's for damn sure. I see a couple of you guys in here. Calvin, it's good to see you. Jay Grizz, go Irish. Good to see you in here. J2K, good to see you. Samo, good to see you. Samo has his own podcast too, Samo. So go ahead and plug that in here for us so we can shout you out as well, and everybody get some support for Samo as well. So Jay Grizz says, I'm Mr. Mom. Trust me, I get it, Tim, as far as your kids. So he says 24/7, 365 with that for him. So totally understand because I've I don't have kids myself, but I've had Tim's kids on my hands before myself and dealt with them on my own. So I know what it's like. They are definitely handfuls. So, but they're, like I said, they're great kids. They're pretty hyper. Tim and I were the same way when we were kids. So
and they're all boys, so they're all going to feed off of each other. But
yeah.
In any case, let me get back. I'm sorry about that, guys. But anyway, so like I said, the ban was released on players once they've passed now. So, and I told you guys this, if you guys remember back when Jeff and I discussed when Pete Rose died I believe it was about 2 months ago, I had mentioned to you guys that I guarantee that they will make him eligible now that he's passed. And it's almost like they waited for time to pass a little bit so that people could mourn his death. And now they're going to release that ban, which in my opinion really bothers me because I understand they obviously truly wanted to make an example out of Pete Rose, one of the greatest players of all time, probably the greatest hitter of all time, pure hitting. I'm not talking home run numbers, but as a pure hitter, his home run numbers sucked, but he was just a pure hitter. The guy, I mean, he's the all-time hit king. So they wanted to use him and make an example out of him for future players that don't disrespect the game. Like, this is our game. It's not yours. No one is above baseball. And so what has now happened with this is these guys are now eligible. But it brings me to a point, Jeff, that I want to ask you about. So I've always been very... how do I put this? I've kind of turned where I've gone here, and it's not because of Pete Rose, although this probably does play into account a little bit. I can almost guarantee you that now he's most likely going to be a Hall of Famer, just because he didn't cheat the game. He just gambled, which is, that was the rule at the time, and still the rule is no betting on baseball. And he broke the rule. But at the same time, like, he wasn't. During his playing career, he did everything clean. So he's like almost, he should be a unanimous Hall of Famer. He won't be, probably. I don't even know if he'll get in on the first ballot. There will be writers that won't vote for him just because they believe that he went against the integrity of the game. But the reason I want to bring this up really quick, Jeff, is because this kind of opens up a whole new can of worms now. When you open up the floodgates for guys like Shoeless Joe and Pete Rose and Eddie Seekett and guys like this. Whatever. It's the same difference. What this does now is it opens up the conversation for the steroid era. And so when this whole thing first came about, I was vehemently against any player that had been proven to have used performance-enhancing substances, that they should have no place in the Hall of Fame. And as I've gotten older and I've thought about this more, I'm kind of going the other way with this. And I'll give you an example. In his career, I hated Barry Bonds. I've never been a Barry Bonds fan. I don't know why. I just wasn't. And when I was a kid, like, I remember one year where he's like 180 pounds and looks like me. And the very next year, he's like 300 pounds and just absolutely jacked. And he starts hitting home runs out like nobody's business. It was obvious the guy was on steroids. Everyone knew it. But here's the thing. At that time in baseball, everybody was juicing. They all were. Some guys weren't. I mean, they weren't. And some guys weren't getting caught. But the point is,
not the big hurt.
And neither did Ken Griffey Jr., but I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of guys were. I know I use the word everybody, but I use that in a general sense. Guys, it was common at that time and let's face reality, steroids saved baseball at that time because baseball was really starting to lose the battle. It was starting to fall out. It had lost popularity. But once steroids hit, the summer of 98 was the most exciting summer in baseball history. It really was. That home run battle between McGwire and Sosa, and don't forget, Ken Griffey Jr. was right there in that race until he got injured.
Hey, I had a McGwire jersey. You remember, Tim? I wore a McGwire jersey to school all the time.
I'm a Reds fan, and I loved Sammy Sosa. Like I wanted Sosa to win that race. Of course, I hate the freaking Cardinals, so I hated Mark McGwire. But the point is, like, that battle turned everything around for baseball. It brought baseball back, and I see this, Cliff, about the Chips reference. I've never actually seen that movie, but I know what you're talking about. In any case here, the longer I've thought about it, and specifically Barry Bonds. So, yes, Bonds' home run numbers skyrocketed. And did steroids help him hit the ball another 30, 40, 50 feet? Yeah, I'm sure they did. They helped him recover, yada, yada, yada. But watching Barry Bonds play, this guy saw one pitch a game and he hit it 450 feet. I mean, it's just the guy wasn't getting pitched to. He was being walked constantly. And when he would get a strike in the at-bat, he was driving the ball. He was smoking it. So it's like, some hitters, nobody's getting one pitch in a game and they're smashing it. It just doesn't happen. There haven't been many, let me phrase it. There have not been very many hitters like Barry Bonds who were capable of doing things like that. And so like I said, I was adamantly against Barry Bonds entering the Hall of Fame. But two things. One, he was a Hall of Famer before he even took steroids. He already had a Hall of Fame career at that point. And two, like I said, he wasn't being given the same opportunity as other guys, and he was still making the most out of that opportunity, which, if you don't understand anything about baseball, it's hard enough to hit a baseball, let alone when you're only seeing one pitch a game. So, I don't know, guys. Like I said, I have always been totally against the steroid guys getting in, and the longer that I've thought about it, I think there should be an exception for certain players. Roger Clemens was a Hall of Famer before he touched steroids. Barry Bonds is a Hall of Famer before he ever touched steroids. Now, you can make arguments for guys like Jose Canseco, who I don't think he really has a Hall of Fame career anyway, but who is the guy? What's his name? Rafael Palmeiro probably wasn't much before steroids. There's guys that you can absolutely make a case. Sammy Sosa, he was a pretty good ball player ahead of that first, but he really started hitting a ton of home runs once he hit steroids, probably. You're on mute, Jeff, but I don't even know necessarily when some of these guys, and that's what makes it tough, is we can't prove most of them, and we don't know the timeline either. So, in my opinion, you can't, at this juncture in time, keep guys out of the Hall of Fame for that reason, just because there's so many uncertainties with that. There's no proof for most of them.
Okay, so that was a lot. So I'll try to keep this quick because that was like a good 10-minute rant you made there. And look, I'm not disagreeing that a lot of these guys probably should still get in the Hall of Fame. I think it depends on the player personally. Like, Barry Bonds is a good example. Roger Clemens is a good example. Those guys were just great players. Bonds was a hitter. Bonds could hit regardless. I mean, he didn't have to be – roids aren't going to do much for a guy as far as his ability to hit a pitched baseball. It'll give him more power, obviously, and that it allows guys to hit a lot more home runs. But the whole point is, a guy like that is just he's going to hit in any era. So regardless of whether he's driving the ball as hard as he was, because he was juicing, it's pretty obvious he was juicing, So, but I will say still, yeah, like I agree with you, Tim. The guy was just a great player, regardless. He's a great hitter. So, yeah, he probably deserves to get in. And there's, just a lot of voters who won't vote for him because of the fact that, like you said before, baseball is just that sport where, especially in baseball, you get writers and people who vote in the media who they are very much about the integrity of the game, for lack of a better word. They just don't like people messing with their sacred game in any way. It is played a certain way, done a certain way, has always been done a certain way. And when something happens, like you taint the game in a certain way, like players, like the the steroid scandals and whatnot, and the spider, the ticky, what was it called? The sticky stuff, the pitchers were using a couple years ago, stuff like that. They're just not going to put up with it. So, there will certainly be voters that don't vote for those guys regardless. There are obviously great players in that era that didn't need the roids. I just mentioned Frank Thomas, a perfect example. That guy never had any kind of no questions about his integrity whatsoever about the way he played the game or whether he was on roids or not. He's just a big man, very, very powerful in general. He was a great hitter. So, I mean, just in those scenarios, there are certain players in those eras that I do think should get in still. I mentioned a couple of them just now. McGuire should probably still get in. He was just a good hitter. I tend to agree with a guy like Canseco. A lot of his play was his power and his ability to put the ball out of the ballpark. And does he have that without the juice? I don't know. At least not as consistently. So, I feel like there's a lot of, like you said, there's just voters who won't, and there's voters who will. I do think Pete Rose will get in probably on the first ballot. I think Shoeless Joe will probably get in on the first ballot. Those guys, just because of the legends behind their names, and that people have been trying to get them in for a long time now. And now that they finally can, I think they will be voted in. And I agree with you. There will be many people who don't vote for them based on what we were talking about a minute ago. But yes, I think they still get in first ballot, both of those guys. We'll have to wait and see. But specifically their situations are so much different than the steroid guys' situations, just because they weren't doing anything to give themselves an advantage over other players. Their stuff was just personal stuff that they at least with Pete Rose, he just probably wasn't a great example of a human being in general, but at the same time, bingo. That was a big part of it, so there's going to be writers who don't vote for these guys for that sole purpose. And I agree, Cliff, Pete Rose does deserve to be in the Hall of Fame because of how great of a player he was. He was an unbelievably good hitter. I don't know if I agree with Tim. He's the greatest hitter of all time, but he is he was a phenomenal hitter. He's definitely one of the best for sure. So, we'll kind of put that to rest because we did spend about 15 minutes talking about baseball, but that's a good topic for another day. I think they'll both get in, but in any case, let's kind of move on here, talking about some other stuff. I don't want to talk a bunch about this because nobody really wants to talk a bunch about this from what I've seen, but we do kind of have to address the fact that Caleb did have that press conference this week and talked about the story that came out and what he wanted to say about it, what his thoughts were about it. I'm only going to spend a few minutes on this. So just to kind of recap the press conference, he basically said, obviously the same thing we've been, obviously before you get drafted, before you go into any kind of job, you're going to look for the best position for yourself. You're going to try to do what's best for yourself. He said the same thing that was talked about in the article that a lot of people are overlooking, that when he first went to Minnesota, yeah, he liked it there and he wanted to go there. Didn't deny that. But then when he came to Chicago after that, he had his top 30 visit, met him at the combine and all that. He came to Chicago afterwards and he liked it here. This is where he wanted to be. He decided he wanted to be a part of turning this thing around. He wanted to be the first 4,000-yard passer. I feel like that kind of thing is getting kind of thrown under the shed for whatever reason. But, in any case, that's a big part of it. It's a big part of it. And, he obviously does want to be here now. He mentioned it in the presser multiple times. He was happy here now. And I told you guys last week about the claw and saying "da bears" if you ever end every presser. That is calculated and done on purpose because he does clearly want to be here. He doesn't have to do any of that shit. If he didn't want to be here, why would he do that? So I just think, again, I don't want to beat the dead horse any more than it already has been. So let's just kind of put it to bed. We all know he wants to be here now. The story's going to come out again because the book's going to come out. We play the Vikings in week 1. It'll be talked about then, so let's just kind of let it rest for a while. And then, maybe if there's something to talk about at that point, then we'll maybe dig into it a little bit then. But I think that I don't want to say it's a non-story because it is somewhat of a story, but at the same time, I don't think that it's that big a deal. So Tim has a clip he wants to show you guys from Courtney Cronin. And he wants us to make a point about it. And Tim, I do want to say something about it real quick before you make your point, because I know you have a lot to say about it. So let's just go. If Aldo, you can roll this clip. Let's show the fans or the chat what she had to say. I think it was on ESPN 1000.
It's Juan Waddle and Sylvie.
Yeah,
I think it's a story that if it wasn't addressed at one point, it would continue to linger in the background. So I understand that there are people in this fan base who are frustrated by the fact that this keeps coming up. I'm so sorry. I don't know what to tell you because it's not a non-story. when your quarterback came out and talked today about how much of a distraction it was and how he felt he needed to handle it.
Okay, so first of all, she had me for a second there. You know, it is a story, and I thought she was going to say something like, look, because the book is coming out, they talked about how he wanted to go to Minnesota at first, then he decided he wanted to stay here. He addressed it in his press conference, and then she said he felt the need to address it in the press conference because it was a distraction. Why do you think it was a distraction? Because the media has blown it out of proportion and made it a distraction. They won't stop talking about it. I agree. He should have come out and addressed it. I'm glad he came out and addressed it. It was probably the right thing to do because he kind of let everybody know from the dragon's mouth, like, look, this is what it is. He said the exact same things we've been saying. So again, I feel like it's only been as much of a story as it has been. It's been a distraction, and he said it was a distraction because I feel like the media has made it a distraction. We've discussed it and talked about it. We're obviously part of the media too because of, we have to, because it's been talked about by everybody else, but we've talked about here on the show why we don't think it's as much of a story as has been blown out of proportion to be. And I think you're obviously going to agree with us for the most part, Chad, because we've heard you guys talking about the same way, so that's just my 2 cents on it. Again, I don't want to spend any more time on it myself. Tim, go ahead and tell us what your thoughts were on that interview. And then again, we'll kind of move on into something else.
So this typically, I like Courtney Cronin for the most part. I think she asks good questions in the interview or in the press conferences. I think she has good insight for the most part. She's pretty even keeled in my opinion. But this one really set me off because in so many words, she's basically telling fans that you're delusional, that this is a legitimate story and you guys just need to get over it, is basically what she said, because I don't know what to tell you. Well, I know what I can tell you in this scenario, Courtney. And like I said, typically I like you for the most part. But in this scenario, again, like what Jeff is saying, it's a distraction. And he felt the need to address it because the media created the distraction by going on and on and on and on with this story. And look, guys, I tend to agree with Greg Gabriel, our host from Gabriel Talks Football here on the Barroom Network. I tend to agree with him that I don't personally believe that Caleb had to address this. I don't think he needed to, but I applaud him, and I think that it was a wise decision that he did do it because and I only say that not because I feel like he needed to do it, but because it was necessary to get the media off his back for now. Now, granted, this is going to come back up again in September when this book comes out, almost guaranteed, especially if the Bears aren't winning. But he got out in front of it, squashed some of the narrative to it, and he never denied any of the story. If you guys didn't notice that, he admitted everything that was in there. But one part that really bothered me, I don't know who asked the question, and I grew up being told that there's no such thing as a stupid question, but I highly disagree because somebody in there actually legitimately asked him, does your father speak for you? Are you your own person? Is Carl Williams out there slinging the rock? Like, are you kidding me right now? What kind of stupid question is that? And this is what this person is getting paid to go over here and write for some network or some newspaper. Who knows? They're paying this guy to ask a stupid question like that. It was terrible. It was such an awful question. And how disrespectful. Do you think for yourself? I would have asked him if I were him, well, do you think for yourself or did somebody else tell you to ask that stupid question? That's exactly how I would have responded to him. But in any case, my point behind this is this story isn't going to go away for the time being. It's going to kill off a little bit here now that Caleb's addressed it. But again, I don't think it's a story, and the media turned it into one. And I will say, I was telling Jeff and Aldo this backstage before the show. Aldo actually asked us if he believed that social media played into this as well. And I said, I believe it did, but it was in the opposite way because fans like us were bantering back and forth with the media saying, you guys are the ones creating the story. You guys are the ones making this a distraction. Need to let it rest. Caleb doesn't need to talk about it. And because of that, it just kept going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And all that was doing was just blowing this story up like a balloon. more and more and more till eventually it burst and Caleb Williams decided it's time to speak on it. But I don't want to talk about it anymore. Like, I'm to the point where it's like, it needs to go away because it was last year. It was last February. It's done and over with. Caleb is in the here and now. He wants to win here. This is what he wants to do. They have a chance to write history. And at the end of the day, like we've discussed in the last couple of shows now, Caleb decided to come here. He didn't pull, an Elway, and he didn't pull an Eli Manning. He decided he was going to come here and turn it around. And he even said, yes, I enjoyed my interview with the Vikings, but when I came to Chicago, I knew this was the place I wanted to be. So it squashes all of this. It doesn't matter if he had a great interview in Minnesota. I've had great interviews and jobs that I didn't take before. That doesn't mean that I prefer one job over the one I took. You know what I'm saying? It's just, you can't continue on with a story that has now gotten to the point where you're so focused on a non-story that you're forgetting about what's actually going on in OTAs and all of the great things that are going on right now. And Jeff, I'm going to switch it to you because I know you want to discuss the Albert Breer article, and this is a perfect transition into that. So like I said, there's a lot of things that they have missed because they're so focused on this that they're missing some of the really good stuff. And Jeff, why don't you go ahead and tell these guys what you wanted to talk about, some of the great stuff.
Well, first of all, we talked about how, at the beginning of the show, how this coaching staff ain't playing no games, guys. They're getting on these guys about everything, and it's not just the offensive coaches. We've heard and seen, like Eric Bieniemy. We've heard about how Ben Johnson was yelling at Cole Kmet and how he gets on guys. Like I think it was on Hogan Johns, they were talking about the other day how, like, they'll come out of the huddle and they'll go to line up and he'll be like, nope, get back in the huddle. Like, he's not happy with the way they go to line up. And I believe it was Adam Hogue that asked that to him in the press conference, like, hey, it might not have been Hogue, but somebody asked him something along the lines of, what was that about? Like, why is it necessary to make him huddle up again and do that all over with? And he's basically said, we have an expectation of how it needs to look and how it needs to sound coming out of the huddle. And if it's not like that, we're not going to stand for it. It's going to be done again. And that's, me paraphrasing his exact words. I can't remember exactly what he said, but that was basically what it was. And, in any case, yeah, look, I like that. I like how they're being very on this stuff because the last staff was not that way. They let some stuff slide. And we even heard about it late in, at the end of the season last year, how I believe it was Poles that addressed it, that there were things going on in camp and whatnot that we kind of let slide by, and we probably should have nipped in the bud right then and there. And so that's what they're doing right now. And again, the defense is doing the same thing. It ain't just Bieniemy and Ben Johnson, Randall L on his players too. It's also the defensive side. Dennis Allen is getting after his guys too. He's making sure they're doing things the right way. And one thing that I felt like was really, if you guys have seen a lot of the clips from the practices, Tremaine Edmonds is having an impact so far. And I know that nobody has pads or anything on yet. So it's hard to really say, what we're going to expect to see, but still, it's encouraging to see the guy making plays left, a lot on the field. I don't want to say left and right, but he's making several plays on the field. He had an interception. I think it was yesterday. He had a tip pass today in the middle of the field or I think that might've been yesterday too, that Jaquan Brisker picked off. He's been playing pretty well so far from what I understand. So I just think that, when we consider the fact that this is just a different vibe, a different look, a different feel, on Waddle and Sylvie, I think it was yesterday, Sylvie came out and said, hey, I'm going to go out and say it now. Like this is the guy, Ben Johnson. He believes that this is the guy that's going to change this thing and get it done and turn this thing around for this franchise. And, I don't want to come out and say, stomp my foot in the ground and make declarations or anything like that. But at the same time, you can see why anybody would think that. The guy is just, what he's doing is different. It's different than what we've seen. And it is encouraging. This is professional football. It should be like this. And the players said, this is what they wanted and this is what they're going to get, so I'm happy with it. And I hope everybody's happy with it. The players should be fucking happy with it too, because that's what they asked for, as I said. So I'm sure they are happy with it. They're not going to, these are grown men. I mean, I don't think any of these guys like Cole Kmet, especially, he's not the kind of guy that's going to get butthurt about getting yelled at practice, So I think that this is a good thing for everybody all around. And again, the young guys see that, and it's going to be a good thing for everyone. So anyways, speaking of that article that you talked about, Tim, I do have a quote here. There's Albert Breer wrote an article on Sports Illustrated, and he was talking about a few different things. Caleb Williams is one of those things, and what the coaching staff is expecting from him, an improvement as far as improvement this year. And I'll just read to you guys the excerpt that I saw from the story that I wanted you guys to see. And he mentioned that the two areas that they really want him to improve on is the pre-snap procedure and his body language. And actually, he mentioned the body language first. So the quote says, on the former, while the coaches understood the beating he took, they showed film to emphasize how he'd been slow to pull himself up off the ground. It was a long year. People got fired in season. And in adverse circumstances, the staff explained, having a quarterback who was rolling with the punches would go a long way. On the latter, there was a smattering of small things. Like on the first play of the game, he turned to his left thinking the motion was coming when it was actually coming from the right. That needed to be cleaned up. So real quick, I haven't really heard people talking about this a whole lot, but I thought that was really important, the way they mentioned as far as the body language, not just the body language in and of itself, the fact that, they wanted it to look better. The reason I think it's important is because they mentioned the whole rolling with the punches part. I think that's important because he is a leader on this football team. Guys are looking to him. DJ Moore, the same thing. Like last year when he walked off the field in that football game and he had a couple things that went on with his body language last year that, the younger players on the team see that. The other guys on the team see that, and they look up to you. They look to you as a leader. And when you do those kinds of things, that's going to rub off on them. And it's probably not going to be a positive thing. So what you have to do, I think that's the band is Triumph, Cliff. I believe what you're talking about. Hold Your Head Up. I believe it's Triumph. I could be wrong about that. Somebody let me know for sure, but I'm almost positive it's Triumph. But yes, hold your head up. I mean, you got to have good body language. Ben Johnson talked about the palms up. We don't want to have palms up, like what's going on kind of thing. We all need he wants everybody to, basically get up, shake it off, next play, because the other team is going to see it as a weakness. When your body language looks like you're out of it, the other team is going to feed off that 100% of the time. I don't think that can go overstated. So I think this body language thing is pretty important. King Book of World says it's Argent. I was wrong.
It is. I was going to tell you it was Argent, but
good call. I'm thinking of a different song. Lay It on the Line is what I'm thinking of. Triumph. Yeah, but I don't know why I was thinking that. But in any case, so I agree. It's just I don't want to. Again, I don't want to spend a whole ton of time on this either. But I think it's important that they are looking at these things, and then the pre-snap procedure is important too because we want to make sure before the play happens. This is why Peyton Manning was so good. This is part of the reason why Tom Brady was so good. These guys know what's happening before it happens. They get up to the line. They've seen so many different coverages. They've seen so many different alignments that they know exactly what's going to happen for every single play call. And Kurt Warner talks about this stuff all the time because he doesn't like pure progression reads. For you guys who aren't familiar with that, it's basically a play call where the design is for the quarterback to go hit through his progressions from receiver 1 to receiver 4 or 5. No matter what the coverage is, you look to 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. Whatever the order is of the receivers in that progression, you go in order every time, no matter the coverage. And Kurt Warner talks all the time about he doesn't like it because what happens is there's a lot of coverages you can see pre-snap that aren't going to allow some of those routes to even be open no matter what. So it doesn't make any sense to sit there and go through those progressions when they're not going to be there. So that's, again, part of the reason why these guys were so good, because they can walk up to the line and see that and say, hey, I know this play call here either isn't going to work or a couple of these routes aren't going to work, or I know I got to go to this guy with the football because depending on what, the safety of the linebacker does because of the alignment that they're in, that's the mental aspect of the game that Caleb has not obviously mastered yet. And this is a big part of what they're talking about. Getting that pre-snap process down, making sure you know exactly what's happening. You know the motion, you know the play call, you know exactly where everybody is supposed to be. So that's a big part of it too. It's not just knowing what the defense is doing, it's knowing what your guys are supposed to be doing and knowing what you're supposed to be doing too. So it's all part of it, and it's all important that they're addressing these things, and they're really taking a credence to it. They're making it an important aspect of OTAs right now, and I'm sure it's going to be drilled and drilled and drilled hard until everybody gets it going right. You can't get to football 301 until you've mastered football 101. So that's where they're at right now, and that's with anything in life. Any course, any study, you can't master it until you've gotten the fundamentals down. So anyways, do you want to say anything about that, Tim? I felt like that was important. I thought that was a really cool little article. If you guys haven't seen it, it's a free read, so it's not like it's got a paywall or anything behind it. Go check out the Sports Illustrated article by Albert Breer. It talks about a couple other things too. Jim Irsay's when he was passing and get like a memoir to him. So some stuff like that. It was a good little read. You should check it out. But go ahead, Tim, with whatever your thoughts are on it.
I just wanted to mention like the change, because you had talked about how they were, they want to change Caleb's body language and things like that. And you'd mentioned DJ Moore's body language last year. And Ben Johnson actually said in his press conference that DJ was acting as a coach on the sideline. He was out there trying to get guys in the right place. Like he knew he has a great understanding of the offense already and is able to coach it to the other players. And Ben said, that's exactly what we're looking for, is guys to do that kind of thing, which makes me believe that maybe DJ Moore has improved from where he was last year as far as his body language and his leading and captainship and all of those things. He might be on the fast track back to being a captain again, but in a good way. Maybe this time he's leading by example in a little bit better way. And like I've said before on this podcast many times, I don't hold a lot of what DJ did last year against him just because it was such a freaking mess. And the guy is sick of losing and wants to just play for a winner. He's never been on a playoff team. But again, at the same time, you do have to control your emotions and control yourself, especially if you are a leader and a captain. But I agree with you, Calvin. I think he should be a captain for sure, as long as he is leading by example, because I believe his play speaks for itself.
I love DJ as a player. I always have. I think he's a very, very good player, especially when his head's in it. When his head's not in it, sometimes he kind of takes himself out of the game, and that's not captain material. So I'm not saying he shouldn't be a captain. I think there was a reason he was a captain in the first place. I think for this coming season, I think there needs to be maybe one captain on each side of the ball, like Joe Tooney, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe
there
Caleb
shouldn't be
too.
very many. There should be about
Joe Tooney and Caleb on offense, and that's about it.
I think 4 captains is a good number. I think 4 captains. It doesn't have to be one from any certain position group or anything. Just make your 4 best leaders on your team.
3, maybe 4. The only other,
I think for a 53-man roster, I think 4 is a pretty fair number. That's a lot of players.
I wouldn't be upset with 4, but 8 was just crazy, and that's
insanity. It's absolutely insanity. Who's the leader?
Again, I like DJ. I always have liked DJ. I think, again, though, like some of the stuff he showed last year, I think he's got to earn his right to captaincy back, in my opinion. I think, again, there really only should be maybe a couple captains on offense between maybe Tooney and Caleb. That's about it.
But I agree with King Booker World, though. I think DJ did see through Waldron and Fluce's BS way earlier in the season than anyone else did.
Yeah,
and
most of them did. Caleb
from.
obviously did too. He was hesitant to go there at first. So that that kind of says something in and of itself. But the one thing I want to mention real quick, though, before we kind of move on, is Aldo mentioned the important thing about that article that we really haven't talked about that he did address, and I'm glad he addressed it, was that the whole watching film thing. He didn't have anybody to watch film with him. And what he basically said was, look, guys, the criticism he was getting from people is like, he's been playing it under Lincoln Riley and he's been playing quarterback his whole life. Surely he knows how to watch film. And that's not what was the premise really of the conversation he had in the article. It was, what he basically said was, I thought that was a funny one that came out. It's not so much me not knowing how to watch film. I know how to watch film. I've been, obviously have done it plenty, but it's more along the lines of like wanting to know what they in particular would like me to look for, like,
and teach me how to improve my skills.
Right.
Teach
Like,
me how to what do you want me looking for?
Right, like especially like being in the league, this is new for him. Like what is different that you would want him to look for and whatnot. And really, you would think that coaches would kind of go out of their way to make sure he knew what he was watching. You know what I mean? And it really, you would think that, especially early on with a quarterback, a young quarterback, that they would go out of their way to spend extra time with him to make sure he's doing it the right way. And obviously bringing in Case Keenum was a huge part of this now. So this guy's been he's clearly a mentor for Caleb, and he's been good for this room. And he said in his press conference, which, by the way, what an impressive individual Case Keenum is. Man, I mean, he's just he seems like a great guy, smart guy. And just, he's been around the block. He seems like a good dude in general. So I thought it was interesting that he said he was basically getting ready to retire. And then he got a call from the Bears and kind of heard about the vision. He said, I feel like they've got something special going on here, and I wanted to be a part of it. And that kind of said something to me. Like a guy who's been around the league, been around some good players, was a backup for C.J. Stroud. He's been around some good football players in his day. So, I mean, and some good coaches too. So I think hearing a guy like that say something like that kind of perks your ears up and makes you think, well, maybe I'm not going nuts. Maybe this really is real here. Maybe we really are finally going to turn this thing around. God, I hope so. It seems like it's looking pretty damn good. Apparently my internet's sketchy. Is it fixed now? Is it doing better now?
You're not frozen anymore, but it's still a little fuzzy.
Well, in any case, I don't know if you guys heard everything I said, but it does.
Unfortunately, I think we did hear everything you said, but
Maddie, thank you so much for the donation. He wants to know
thank you, Maddie.
$5 donation for Maddie. Maddie's a loyal listener. We appreciate you being here all the time, Maddie. He wants to know if we talk about Rodgers, if we heard about Rodgers talking shit again. I did not hear what he said. You guys will have to remind me in the chat. The only thing I've heard about him recently was that Terry Bradshaw was talking mad shit about him. How he does not want him to be with the Steelers, and I don't blame him for that. So, yeah. And Cliff, in regards to Case Keenum, $2.5 million, yeah, that can be pretty convincing. But still, I mean, he's made a lot of money in his career just to come sit on a bench. I mean, because really, all he's going to do is practice. He's not going to get to play much. So it's like you have to come and practice and work hard and prepare and all this kind of stuff to really not have an opportunity to play. Yeah, it's $2.5 million. That's great. But, I mean, he's made a lot of money in his career. He doesn't need it. Just, didn't have to do it. He wanted to be here. I thought that was kind of important. Yeah, I'm sure the $2.5 million was a big part of it. Sure. But still, I mean, the guy didn't have to do it. He wanted to be here. I thought that was important. So, in any case, yeah, Maddie, let us know exactly what he said. So we'd like to address it if we can. I really don't have a clue what he was saying about the Bears this last time. He's always.
I think there was some quote where he said, "I love Chicago, but they hate me," or something like that. Was part of the conversation, but he did say, I can't remember exactly what he said, but I'm pretty sure that wasn't there.
He clearly likes the Bears too, which is why he says, "I own you." When he said, "I own you" at the end of that, or after that touchdown in that one game, and did the WWE belt thing. Aldo's I think you got a clip of it, what actually was said. So go ahead and roll that for us, Aldo. Thank you.
I want to ask how much you contemplated retirement. You play golf, play more golf, man. You don't have to sign anywhere. Just, take it easy.
I'm guessing you're like the normal Bears fan. The best thing about Bears fans is every year, this is our year. This is our year. We added this guy and that guy, and then we got a new coach from Detroit. Oh, man. Look out.
This is it.
Right? Packers fans, we know that, right? And what does every coach that signs at the Bears say? We got to beat the Packers, right?
Yeah.
Packers don't give a shit.
Rodgers, you don't play for the Packers anymore.
Nope.
And not only just that, he's like trying to, he said something about like, he would pay to retire. He would take a one-day contract to retire there kind of thing. Yes, Maddie. Again, thank you for the donation. $2 donation, FGB. Totally. 100% FGB. Everybody should be on board with that. I can't stand the Packers. And it's even worse if Rodgers who doesn't even play for him anymore, who's got all he can do is talk shit. It's like, but you don't even have a team you play for right now. So, the fact
they wanted you gone so bad that they paid you to leave. They wanted you gone.
They were ready to move on from him. And the fact of the matter is, the Jets were ready to move on from him too. He didn't play. It reminds
me of Moneyball, where the scene where Brad Pitt goes up to the guy that plays David Justice, and he's like, "Well, you're paying me so and so amount of such and such amount of money, so yeah, I guess I am kind of special." He says, "No, I'm not." And he's like, "Yeah, you are." He's like, "No, the Yankees are paying half your salary. That's how much the Yankees love you. They're paying you to play against them."
That's
same
a great
idea.
Point. I cannot believe I'm saying that right now, but that is a great point you brought up, because it really is the same kind of thing. It's like, but obviously they saw value in David Justice. That's why they brought him in. But the whole point he was trying to make was, look, dude, I ain't paying you that money. You're getting paid that money by another team. I'm taking you for scraps. So in any case, that's really kind of what it is. That's what they saw of Rodgers. They're ready, both those teams are ready to move on from him. So Pittsburgh, they've been in quarterback turmoil ever since Ben Roethlisberger retired. So, and I don't understand what they've been doing. They have not had any kind of plan at the quarterback position at all. So, just the fact that they're looking at Rodgers as a potential solution is not a surprise, because they haven't had a good solution in years. So, I don't think he'd do much there either. I mean, it just, the guy just, all he wants to do is run his mouth. I get so sick of hearing him. I get so sick of seeing him. I don't even care what he's got to say. I really don't. The fact that he goes ahead and brings up every year that the Bears say this, that, and the other thing, well, you're the one talking about him right now on the show. So, whatever.
He's just
condescending.
He's literally a condescending prick. I cannot stand the guy.
He's an idiot.
He's a diva.
Flat out, he's an idiot.
I really think that he is seriously completely messed up in the head. Like, totally.
Well, I mean, he's a football player. I'm sure he's taken plenty of hits. Antonio Brown is totally messed up in the head. And I 100% think it's because of that Vontez Burfict hit he took in that game.
Yep.
I mean, when he got completely laid out, I mean, he's just
never the same after that.
Never been the same. I think it totally messed him up. So I just look, I mean, the fact of the matter is, again, it's just Rodgers running his mouth like he always does. He doesn't even have a team to play for right now. So we'll see how he just needs to go away. He's 5 minutes away from retirement.
Anyways. I think Calvin's right. I think it's just because he's a freaking drug addict, literally a just absolute
he's
drug addict.
He's getting that DMT. He's got them vivid dreams going on in real life. That's what that shit is, man. But
Radon Randall. I'm Radon Randall. This is Dreams.
Yeah, if you guys have never seen Blue Mountain State.
Blue Mountain State.
It's a football. It's a show about a college football program. They're like the best program in the nation year in and year out.
Must watch television show.
Blue Mountain State, and it's just hilarious. It's like basically follows around the guy he's the backup quarterback, and then he becomes the starter later on in his career. But then the other guy in the show is the guy who plays Reacher. And he is just hilarious in the show. He's a total idiot in the show. And it's completely different from Reacher, but it's so funny, man. It really is. But any case, yeah, guys, just Rodgers, like I said, the guy he's nuts. He's off the deep end. I don't anything he's got to say anymore. It's in one ear and out the other. So in any case, moving on. I want to mention a couple of things before I get to you guys' questions here, because you got a few from what I see. And by the way, keep sending your questions in. We'll answer anything you guys have for us at the end of the show. I'm about to address some music stuff. So if you got music questions for us, go ahead and throw them in the chat, and anything you want to just talk about in general. And although if you can get the graphic up on the screen of the email address, we do have an email here for the show for you guys to send anything you want to send us. We'll like any questions you have, anything you want to talk about, any kind of topics of discussion. Anything like that you guys would maybe want to talk with us about, or any ideas you have, feel free to send us an email. The email is willistwintowerspodcast@gmail.com. So again, that's willistwintowerspodcast@gmail.com. Send anything you want to us, and we'll try to address it any way we can in a show in the future. So
I will say it'll be a lot easier for us to get to your questions if we have them ahead of time, because then we can plan to answer them in the show.
And when you join us live, you can see, hey, there's my question that I asked the other day, and they're answering for me now. So if you know, if we happen to miss your live question because we ran out of time or whatever, well, that's a really good way to make sure we get it for you. So that's a good idea, Tim. I appreciate you saying that. And yes, guys, go ahead and send that to us, and we'll, like I said, we'll get it in here for you. But I want to mention a couple things from last week. There was a couple songs you guys mentioned, King Book World and Cliff. You guys are both here, which is awesome because I want to address them for you. Cliff, you're a loyal listener, and really, so are you, King.
Hang on, Jeff. Let's get to, there's only a couple questions here. Let's knock them out real quick before we get into pop culture.
That's fine. That's
fine. These are football related. So, well, the first one is who wins an air guitar contest. It ain't me. I'm an air drummer. I'm not an air guitarist.
Tim would admit that I'm a better guitar player than he is. Yeah. I'm not a very good one myself, really, exactly either. But I'm okay. Tim's, like I said, Tim's probably a little bit better drummer than I am. But I'm really I dabble in both. I'm not great at either one. I could probably, if I really wanted to write like a simple song, like the guitar part and a drum part for it, and even a bass part, I could probably do it. But I'm not like good by any stretch of the imagination. No. So I could do something simple though. Yeah. But air guitar. Yeah. Tim would probably agree. I would be better. Just guitar in general. I'd be better than he is. Calvin wants to know if Rome's going to have a breakout year. I think he is, Calvin. I think he was starting to show later on in the year last year. It was really kind of starting to happen early in the season, like week 5 on, I feel like is when he really kind of started to show why he went 9th overall in the draft. The guy is his combination of size and route running ability to me is kind of rare. You don't see a lot of guys that big who are as sudden as he is. There was a clip from practice today of him with Antoine Randall L.
There was one yesterday too.
Maybe it was yesterday. He was holding Randall L. was holding out the bag, the cone thing, like he's a defender pressing Rome in coverage. And Rome basically was running around. And he's running directly straight towards him, like almost like a go route. And then his cut was so sudden in front of this cone because like he's getting pressed off this cone. He ran like I think it was an in route, an in breaking route where he cut so hard on such a dime and so sudden, and it was in slow motion. You could still tell how sudden it was. It was an impressive route, an impressive rep. I just think the guy is, like I said, he was showing it last year. His wiggle and his burst, the way I think he's a better route runner than DJ is. The guy is just he's gonna be something else. He's really going to be a fantastic receiver, I think. They're two totally different players, him and DJ. DJ's so good after the catch because of his unbelievable strength for a receiver. But I think that Rome, his game is different. He's a better route runner. He's a better down the field threat, I think. I just think he's probably a little faster. The guy he's a complete receiver, and he's going to be very, very, very good. I do see a breakout coming from him. Cliff says Rome's going to get a lot of Keenan's targets. I think Luther Burden gets a lot of those targets too. I think he's going to be in Colston Loveland. These guys are going to be part of the offense. Cole Kmet had a nice rep today in practice. There was a scene, it might have been yesterday. It was a nice little rep from Caleb too. Just like quick, like little 3-step drop, balls out down the seam to Cole, big play. And it was on Hogan Johns. They mentioned that I think it was the same play that basically it was schemed open, and they like how they're scheming these guys open. So. Maddie, is that another $2 super chat for FGB? I appreciate that.
I also think personally that Caleb and Rome had the most natural chemistry of any wide receiver on the roster.
Yeah, well, they were rookies together, so that would make sense.
And they were friends. They got working ahead of time. I like what Erica says here. She says, I love DJ, but Rome, I believe she said like Rome was the man or something like that. And I think, Rome could be wide receiver 1.
I think he is.
In my opinion, right now, DJ is the better player, but I personally think that Rome is going to be the best receiver on this roster by the end of this year. And I believe personally, and I thought this when he was coming out of the draft, I thought he was the best receiver in that draft class. I still think he is. I think the team sucked last year. I think he's going to be in the conversation with guys like Justin Jefferson and your guy over in Cincy, Jamar Chase. And I think he's going to be in the top tier conversation. Yeah. I don't think he's going to be a part of like the DK Metcalfs and the.
I think he'll be better than that.
I agreed. That's what I'm saying. I think
don't
he's
know
going to
if
be
he's
ahead of
gonna-
that.
I mean-
Maybe just a tick below those guys, but I could see him like in the Cooper Cups. I think he's right there with those guys. I really do. I really
I don't
do.
know if anybody. I kind of am with J2K. I love Rome, but wow. I mean, I don't know if he's quite Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. We're talking like generational players right now. I mean, these guys.
That receiver class last year was a generational receiver class. Those first three guys were
the class last year was
legit.
a really good one. Yes,
Legit
those
guys.
guys are just like they are unbelievably good. I mean, Jamar Chase. I'm a little biased because I've had him on my fantasy team since his rookie year, and I love the guy, and I love his connection with Burrow. I do think he's slightly better than Justin Jefferson personally. I think he is. They're both just unbelievably good players, though. I mean, so good. I think they both have. Like, I think there's a gap between them and even like CD, really. And CD's a really good player.
I agree, 100%. I agree.
I think they're like a cut above everybody else, and it's really a pretty decent gap. But I think Rome could get up there in like the CD area. Sure. Yeah. I think he could be.
Well, I say this because any other draft year, Rome's going top 5. He went 9th because he had 2 other guys in his class and all of the quarterbacks ahead of him. So any other year, he's top 5. Any other year. And the only guys that go top 5 are the guys that are like those guys that they believe are those guys. I truly believe Rome has everything to get to that point. And I see what you're saying, J2K. I think Brian Thomas and Ladd McConkey had a better year last year, but I don't think they're better receivers than Rome is at all.
Ladd's pretty damn good. Ladd is pretty damn good.
Not the same player though either. There's things that Rome can do that he can't. I'm not sure there's anything he can do that Rome can't. Maybe route running from the slot, but
a little twitchier than Rome, dude. So
maybe
there are some things
smaller though. But Rome is fast too. Rome is a 4.3. They say he's 4.3. He ran a 4.4, but they say he's TJ Hushmanzada last year said that Rome was a 4.3 guy. He just didn't have good 40 times, but he's fast for being that size. He's huge, big guy too.
Look, he's going to be good. I mean, like I said, I agree. I think that's only a matter of time before he is wide receiver 1 on this football team.
Yes.
I think he's just got a higher ceiling than DJ does, and I think he's going to reach his ceiling. So I just feel like I said, I think it's a matter of time. Maddie says he's intrigued to see Monangai in pads. I am too. I think the running back room in general. There's a question from Jay Grizz. He wanted to know if we would trade. Where did it go? He wanted to know if we were to trade DJ for an elite running back or like a 3-tech defensive tackle. An elite running back, no. I guess, maybe like Saquon, but that would be like the only scenario. Nobody's trading Saquon. So, no, not for a running back, and even a 3-tech, because really, I think between Jarrett and I think Dexter is about to have a massive year too. He had 6 sacks last year.
You're walking into our last question too. You're walking right into our last question. I think it was from Maddie about the defensive line. Does the pass rush worry you guys? So this is perfect segue.
I don't know if it necessarily worries me. I'm not like beating the drum saying we got it fixed. I think it is something to keep an eye on. Yes, I think that Sweat hopefully is healthy this year and he plays better because when he first got to Chicago, he was a man on a fucking mission. Now that guy was something else. He had a couple sacks where he just looked like a grown man pushing little boys around. So I think that if he can get back to that state of play, that's a big thing. It's a big deal for the defense. And I think he's going to play better with Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen just knows how to, he's going to get so exotic with the way he brings pressures and stuff. And he's just going to be so much more aggressive that I think the pass rush is going to be better in general. But again, it is still something to keep an eye on because I'm afraid that they might have to bring pressure more than they necessarily should. Dennis Allen's going to want to do it anyways, but I think that we may have to do it out of necessity. That's the thing that I don't want to say it worries me, but it's something to keep an eye on because I do think Dexter's going to. I think he's primed for a jump. I do. I think he's primed for a jump. Grady Jarrett, he's getting older. I think he's still a good player. I don't think he's going to be what he once was, but he's still going to be an impactful player. Andrew Billings is a key piece. If he can stay healthy, he's going to be big on the run defense aspect, which will kind of help open up the pass rush. And then Dio, that guy was signed for $16 million from Indianapolis. the hope is that he's going to be impactful. Hopefully you get more on Austin Booker, which, by the way, he looks bigger. He looks like he's put on some weight. A lot of these guys look like they put on some weight. My guess is the strength program, they've really put an emphasis on getting these guys, getting some mass on these guys and getting them bigger. I think that was a plan for a lot of these guys because they do look bigger, most of them. So I think even Caleb looks a little thicker myself. I don't know if that's just me, but I think they pretty much the whole team looks like they're a little stouter than they have been, which is to me, that's an improvement. And that's a good thing. So, I don't know what your thoughts are, Tim, but I feel like the pass rush, I don't want to say it's a worry, but I'm keeping my eye on it. Yeah.
I'm not worried about this rotation. I think it's going to be really good, actually. Do I think it's going to be elite? No. But I think the biggest addition on that defensive line, I don't care what his age is, it is Grady Jarrett, and it's not necessarily because of his on-field play as much as it's going to be his impact on that defensive line and on that locker room for those guys and getting them all to gel and teaching guys like Dexter. And I just think that having Grady Jarrett was the best thing that could have happened to Gervon Dexter. And I think we're going to see him take a massive step this year, which is only going to help the entire offensive line. I think Montez Sweat's going to be healthy this year. He wouldn't even release what happened to him last year, what the injury was. But I told you guys this all year that I thought there was something wrong with him to the point where it was totally affecting his play. And I don't know if you guys remember this. In last offseason, we had talked about who would be a lot of people say Caleb Williams. If we lost one player for the season, who would have the biggest impact? And I actually said it's Montez Sweat, because if we lose him on that defensive line, we're toast. And did we actually lose him to injury for the season? No, but he was never healthy, and the entire defensive line suffered. So I think they've given themselves a much better opportunity here. They've increased the depth tremendously on both sides of the ball, obviously in the trenches, but I do think I'm not worried about it. I think they could potentially improve it and add some more pieces even, but I like it where it's at. And this is a good segue here as well, because J2K asked if we have roughly $15 million in cap space available after next week, does he see us making any additions? And I would say J2K, if they do make any additions, it's going to be after preseason or during, once some of these guys start getting cut on these rosters. I think that would be the time that we maybe take some swings or a swing on a player. Just depends, because there's always a player that nobody expects to get cut that gets cut in the preseason. So
they could bring somebody in, yeah, like they did last year when they made those trades for Chris Williams and
yep.
The edge rusher. What was the guy's name? I can't remember.
The guy from Seattle.
Yeah, I can't remember his name though for life.
I can't either.
And anyways, the edge rusher. They another guy they
Daryl Taylor.
Thank you. And Jay Gris, thank you for the $4.99 donation. He says just because he loves the show, we're both Irish fans. Absolutely, go Irish. They are recruiting like a son of a bitch lately, Jay Grizz. They are looking really good. And I just think it's hilarious that Brian Kelly, when he left Notre Dame, all he could talk about was, I can't recruit as well at Notre Dame as I'm going to be able to do at LSU. And guess what? Guess who has a top 5 recruiting class in the country right now, and probably will again? He's already got a number 5 class for 2027 too.
He's been top 10 every year he's been there.
So he has been top 10 every year, and Brian Kelly was not. So
yep.
Tell that to Marcus Freeman, who's been getting all kinds of great players. So
I had a proud moment. I had a proud moment, Jay Gris, today. It was my son's 5th grade graduation. And you know how they always put the slideshow of all the kids and what they want to be when they grow up, what they want to do. And my son said, I want to attend the University of Notre Dame on a baseball scholarship and play in Major League Baseball. So
you got a decent baseball team.
They do.
And they almost made the NCAA tournament this year. Almost. They missed out. They were really good for a long time, and I guess they haven't been so much lately, but they almost got in this year.
Who was it? AJ Pollock for the Diamondbacks that went to Notre Dame? Was it I think it was Pollock. I'm pretty sure it was AJ Pollock, yeah. Yeah.
They've had several. Cole Kmet played baseball at Notre Dame.
Yep, sure did.
They've had
Jeff
several.
Jeff Samardzija played baseball. And,
Jeff Samardzija played for Cubs too.
And the Giants, yeah.
So, that's kind of of my 2 cents on that. But anyways, we're kind of running out of time here, and I wanted to address this stuff with you guys real quick because I mentioned earlier that I would. So I want to talk a couple of these songs through with you guys, King Booker World and Cliff, that you guys mentioned to me last week, wanting to know what my preferred versions were of a couple songs. And the first thing I told you last week, King, that I liked the Metallica version of Whiskey in a Jar better than the Thin Lizzy version, and I do. Yep. But I went back and I listened to the Thin Lizzy version again the other night just because it's been a while since I've heard it. Man, that guitar solo, though, I'll tell you what, that is something else. That I do not know the guy's name. I can't remember it now for the life of me. If I've ever known, I'm not sure. But the guy from Thin Lizzy, that guy can shred now. I mean, that shit is good. So I do really like that solo, but the Metallica version is better. But I wrote this stuff down because I wanted to remember it for you guys. So the New Dawn Fades. You asked us what version we like better between Moby and Joy Division. So first of all, I didn't realize the Moby version is in the movie Heat. What an awesome movie that is if you guys haven't seen it before. Got Val Kilmer, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino. Pacino, I believe, plays the cop, and De Niro and Val Kilmer and a couple other guys, they're like bank robbers, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I've seen a movie, but it's such a good movie. And that song was in it, and it makes sense now because I can kind of picture it after hearing it the other night. So that is good, but I do like the Joy Division version better. I wrote down, it kind of reminds me of, so Tim and I, our dad introduced us to this group when we were little called Crocus, and they had this song called Screaming in the Night.
Love it.
The group Crocus is spelled Krokus, but the song Screaming in the Night, it kind of reminds me of that. The Joy Division version of New Dawn Fades kind of gave me a little bit of Crocus vibes, and that is a really, really good song if you haven't heard it before. Screaming in the Night. Go check it out if you haven't. It is really, really good song, man. And it's got this like echoey, stagey, it's a nighttime vibe. It's really, really cool. So check it out. But then going back to Cliff asked about the song Baby Please Don't Go, and you mentioned like 4 different versions of the song of guys who did. So I went and watched like all of them or listened to all of them. The original was Big Joe Williams' version. I wrote down, wow, is that some impressive acoustic guitar work? It's got a folk blues vibe, and I really enjoyed that guitar part a lot. The singing, his voice is pretty good too. He's got an older vibe to it for sure, but it's really, really good guitar playing for that kind of generation. I mean, he was smooth, man, really smooth. And then the Muddy Waters version I felt was a better overall mix. It's like, especially the other instruments that were included in it.
More bluesy, jazzy style.
Yeah, I was going to say it was a little more of that sound. I preferred Muddy's voice. I felt like he's got a little bit better singing voice for the song. Like I said, the other instruments are better, and Muddy's guitar was also ultra impressive, but just totally different. Mm-hmm. Overall, I think I like it better because of all that. And then I listened to the AC/DC version. Man, that is fucking awesome, dude. I'm upset I've never heard it before. Really,
I didn't really like their version. I did, man. I didn't like Bon Scott's vocals in it. I just didn't think it flowed very well. I didn't think it flowed very well.
That's why I like it. I was just gonna.
I didn't think it flowed well with the music. I just didn't. I don't know.
Well, AC/DC made it different. That was what I was gonna say.
That's
it
true.
Was very impressive. It still had that folky, bluesy vibe, but it was absolutely a rock song, and it was hard rock in a way that only AC/DC can do it. The drum part in the middle is really cool. Bon Scott's classic scream, as I have written down here, and the guitar parts between the young brothers were just fantastic. It definitely had their signature sound, and so that's why I like that version so much. I thought it was, I mean, after I heard that, I was just like, I can't believe I've never heard this version before because it's so good. It has such a different vibe and feel than the other ones did, but it's so AC/DC. It really was, and it was a really cool song, really cool version. And then I listened to the Ted Nugent version. It was fun. Again, the guitar part is brilliant, but that's Ted Nugent for you. It's a theme with the song is what I wrote down, that the guitar parts were so good from all these guys. It had a very, very Ted Nugent-like sound. It definitely reminded me of like his vibe of music, Stranglehold and all that. They all have a familiar sound.
I thought you said it really well earlier when you said it was very Nugent-esque, and it was. Yes, it was like he made it into one of his own, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely Yeah, very, very much so his sound. And the guitar, like I said, the guitar part was brilliant. I mean, it was signature Ted Nugent. So it was really cool. And then the only Rolling Stones version I could find, Cliff, was a live version with Muddy Waters. And so it was Muddy Waters playing, and then he brought up Mick Jagger, and then he brought up why do I always blank on his Keith Richards, brought up Keith Richards, then he brought up other drummer or other guitar player, Ronnie James. Damn it, what's his name? Ronnie something. Anyways, so what I wrote down was that the Rolling Stones version, Mick was on point as usual. Is right as soon as he walked up on stage, his sound is just so clear and so on, like it always is. Keith Richards played an improv solo that had a surfer style rock feel to it, and it was really
Dio?
Cool.
King Bookworld says it's Dio. Was that Dio?
No, not Ronnie James Dio.
I was gonna say he was on his own. He was in He was Rainbow, and then he did his own thing.
I'm talking about the Rolling Stones other guitar player. It's like Ronnie. Yeah. I can't remember his name. Ronnie something. Like you're thinking of Ronnie. You're thinking of Ronnie James Dio because I said Ronnie James.
Ronnie
maybe
James.
Maybe that's what made it. But yeah,
Dio.
So he was good, real good
guitarist. Yeah. I personally liked Rainbow without him though. I did like Rainbow in the Dark though. That's a good song.
Yeah, that's a good song too. There's a couple good songs, but Street of Dreams is a great song.
That's not with Ronnie James Dio. That was after Dio, but yeah,
still a great song.
It is a great song. I love it.
Like I said, that very surfer-like feel to that guitar part, very technically sound, and it was a core element of jazz. The reason I said that is because what happened is, and this was the case with a lot of like folky, bluesy music in the first place. Jazz has an element, the way jazz is constructed, and really rock music and everything else is kind of formed off of jazz in the first place. You get a bass line, a drum part, and a rhythm, which come together, and they play in a certain key. You have a rhythm part behind it, like a guitar or something like that, or bass, whatever the case may be. And then you solo over it. And in jazz, it was like a trumpet or a sax or whatever. They would solo over this beat, whatever it was, like boom, 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 boom. And then you'd play some like frantic guitar solo over it or something like that. Well, that's exactly what was going on here with this song. So they're in the middle of this solo section, this improv section, and Keith Richards is just, doing his thing, surfer guitar style, very technically sound. It was impressive. It really was. So I really liked that a lot too. But I think my favorite version was that AC/DC version, Cliff. I don't know why. I just really, really liked it. I thought it had a different vibe to it. It was so them, and it was really. I really liked all of them, honestly. But that was probably my favorite. It really was. What do you think, Tim?
Okay, so a couple things. One, I want to get into that too, but first, I remember you guys. We got into the Prince conversation because anytime you mention the greatest guitarist of all time, I will jump that train and tell you it's Prince. And somebody in the chat had mentioned the George Harrison tribute video, and it was so ironic that I was in my room doing something earlier today, and I walk out, and my son has it playing on the TV. He's like, "Look, Dad, Finnick loves this song. The Prince is playing." I was like, "That's my boy." I'm so proud of my kids. But anyway. So as you can see, I definitely have influence on my children in that regard. But I also went on this journey too. I would be totally honest. I wasn't super familiar with the song. I had heard a couple of those versions. I'd never heard the Muddy Waters version. I'd never heard the original version, and I hadn't heard all of the other versions. After listening, 100% agree, Cliff. Prince was way far ahead of his time. But I listened to several versions. Originally, I thought I liked Ted Nugent's the best because, again, like you said, Jeff, it was very, very Nugent-esque, but it was also, the guitar part was phenomenal. I was not a big fan of the AC/DC version, like I said earlier. And I listened to I thought it was a version of the song. Alice Cooper does a song called Baby Please Don't Go, exactly same spelling and everything. Totally different song, not a cover, just for the record. But I listened to several different versions. Go ahead.
I was going to say real quick, King Bookworld mentioned something off topic here. There's a Rolling Stone live version of Sympathy for the Devil where it looks like they're in a barn and out of nowhere there's John Lennon dancing all crazy. I have not seen that King Book World, but I would like to see it because I love that song. It's one of my favorite Stone songs. So I have to check that out for sure. Sympathy, what a great song, Sympathy for the Devil. But go ahead.
Yeah.
We're running out of time. We got to get out of here.
Yes. I'll finish it with this quickly. I think my favorite version was the Aerosmith version because it was the most authentic to the original. The harmonica part, Steven Tyler with his harmonica, but it was very authentic. And Joe Perry's guitar part, phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal. I really enjoyed the Aerosmith version. I thought they did a very good job of keeping it authentic while also keeping it Aerosmith. It was you didn't hear that version of it? It's really good. You need to go listen to that one. I really liked the Aerosmith version. Yes, probably my favorite one.
I'm probably going to catch flack for this. I'm not the biggest Aerosmith fan in the world.
I'm not so much either.
Stuff, but
yes,
I kind of got turned off from them when they went. They had other people writing their music for them. That kind of bothered me. But they do have some really good songs. I heard Last Child. That's a great song.
Their best song, Steven Tyler doesn't even sing it. So he does live, but he didn't do the studio version. So
I was just like I said, I heard Last Child today. That's a really good song. I do like a lot of their stuff.
I do like some of their stuff too.
Dream On's a great song too.
It is.
I'm not the biggest Aerosmith fan. I hear people say they're like the greatest American rock band of all time. I'm just like, you guys out of your minds. You ever heard lyrics?
Because they're still together. They're one of the few that's still together and still plays. So that's part of why. And Steven Tyler is an icon. He really is.
I just think there's a lot of American bands that are better than Aerosmith, personally.
I agree.
Personal opinion.
I do like Pink and I do like Ragdoll a lot. I like both those songs.
Ragdoll is a great song, but I think that was written after, when they had people write music for them.
It was later. It was later in their time for sure.
So,
yes.
Yeah, but they do have some good stuff. Any case, like I said, we're out of time. I wanted to spend a little more time talking about music today, but Tim got going with baseball, and it took up a little more time than we expected to, which is fine. So next week, though, you guys bring your music stuff like always, because we've been having some good conversations about that last couple weeks, and I love how you guys are fans of that.
That's crazy. Real quick, Calvin just mentioned that he went to see Metallica at Virginia Tech last year. I literally was just watching live video of that concert literally an hour before the show tonight. I love Metallica and I love their live stuff. They are so unbelievably good live. You wouldn't even know that it's not live because they're that good. They're that good live. Love them.
J2K asked an incredibly difficult question to answer. So I don't know if I can actually give you an answer, J2K. He wants to know what our favorite musician movie is. Not a musical, but a movie based on a band or musician. There's so many good
I don't
ones.
know.
It's hard for me to. I just started watching the Doors recently with Val Kilmer. I haven't finished it yet, but so far that's been pretty good.
We can look into that next week. Yes.
Yeah, we'll talk about it more next week for sure.
I will say before we go though, the one I probably watched the most recently. Yeah, the ZZ Top one did suck, Cliff. The one I did like recently the most, The Dirt, the one on Motley Crue, was absolutely fantastic. I loved that movie. It was awesome. If you guys haven't seen it, it's on Netflix. It's called The Dirt. And they wrote a song for it too. It was great. Loved it.
Yeah, great. There's a bunch of great ones. We'll go over them for sure next week. I'll look into it more, J2K, now that you reminded us. So we'll talk about it next week for sure. But we appreciate you guys being here as always. We kind of held it over. We thank you all for being patient with us and staying along with us like this. So real quick reminder, guys, before we get out of here, I'm not sure what DB3 said to get himself banned.
He's a Lions fan. He just said we were the Chicago Bears.
Well, guess the only one that's shit right now is probably is Don Burrow, which is hilarious. DB3 has got to be him. But in any case, thanks, guys, for being here. Calvin says, great show. We appreciate that, Calvin, and we appreciate your support, you being here. As always, guys, a quick reminder, please like the video, subscribe to our channel. Lots of great content here in the bar room besides just us. You can find Gabriel Talks Football. It's usually Mondays or Tuesdays every week in the morning. We have Bare Their Souls on Wednesday nights. A lot of great stuff here on the channel. So check us out, guys. Give us all a follow on Twitter. You can find us all. I'm at _Jeff Willis. Tim is at Tim Willis 24. and our executive producer Aldo is at Barroom Network. And as you can see here on the bottom of the screen, Gabriel Talks Football is Monday mornings live at 11 a.m. Central Time. I always forget it's earlier for me because I'm here in California and it's like 9 a.m. for me, so a little different. But in any case, guys, like I said, I appreciate you being here as always. And until next week, bear down.
Da Bears.
The Willis Twin Towers podcast is a Barroom Network production. Jeff and Tim Willis are the co-hosts and co-producers. Aldo Gandia is executive producer. Music is licensed from Pond 5. Any copyrighted material used was done under the Fair Use Doctrine for commentary, criticism, and informative purposes. All of our programming is available in audio-only format by subscribing to the Barroom Network wherever you download podcasts. Videos are archived on YouTube.